Welcome or welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe and galaxy. Today, we're joined by a very familiar face, his third time on the podcast, Tamer Zaid. Welcome back, welcome aboard, as we always like to say. Today, we're going to be focusing on something very specific. Of course, we can talk about whatever Tamer wants to talk about, but mainly, we're going to be promoting and focusing and sharing the positive message from his new book. I've been wanting to sit down with you and talk to you about this for a while, and now we finally get to do it. So, of course, if you don't mind me saying, why don't you give a one-sentence reminder to anyone who wants to remember who you are, and then you can just basically dive directly into your book and go from there. I'll mute the microphone, talk as much as you want. Go.
Thank you, Aaron, for having me again on your podcast. I really appreciate your trust in me, the honest interviews, sharing the knowledge and the purpose of all the people that you interview. Um, my name is Tamer Zaid, a self-published author. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I recently became an author after writing my first autobiography, Blind War. So here recently, I released my second edition of Blind War, which really focuses on my life journey, and talking about my struggles growing up and um, realizing how I can grow as a person, um, dealing with uncertainty, dealing with you know basically blindness and also some other issues that I talk about. Um, my focus of writing my book is to make others that may have, similar issues understand how they can overcome challenges, how they can understand their life and basically have purpose in their life. So, in my book, I do talk about how, I faced so many challenges, but, I was, fortunate to have a great family, great mentors, um, you know, the National Federation of the Blind, as an adult helped me to, you know, shine as a person, know that I am, worth, being a leader and providing, you know, um, sufficient, you know, um, practices of how I can, um, you know, make a change in other people's lives and also, make my life, you know, positive where I can give back to the community. So in a way, it's, a two-way, street. And, I wanted to write my book because I felt there's so many people out there that are feeling down, feeling hopeless. And, because I went through my life and understood how I can, live my life to the fullest, I wanted to share my journey, my story. Um, whether you're, mentoring others, whether you're, making a difference in other people's lives. Um, and, my journey is about self, reflection. It's about, growing as a person. And I discuss all of that in my book.
Excellent. Perfect.
Hmm.
It really, I think, takes a very special person to choose to write a book, right? So,
Correct.
you've been having a lot of experiences in your life, and we've been talking
Mm-hmm.
about a lot of these experiences over the years here on the podcast. So, and it's something that I didn't understand before you came today, and now I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And either I misunderstood or I didn't know. So you said though that the book is called Blind War, but you said that there was like a prequel to the book you just released, or is it just one book? That wasn't entirely clear.
So yeah, so the way I did it is I had the first book that I released. That book was published through a publisher's house. But during that process, I had so many issues because those publishers that I worked with did not really understand the blindness perspective. The non-visual skills that blind people use. They did not understand, how to craft my story so that I can tell it in a profound and honest way. So that was my first edition. But what I did after that, after 6 months of that, I went and, took the urge to rewrite my story in a way that a blind person can understand it. And for, people like us to understand the struggles and, the misconceptions of one person going through life. So, to, to make this clear, my first book wasn't really profound. It wasn't really, told in a way that it would, have emotions. It would have feelings. But, I was, hopeful, and I worked with a blind writer that helped me to craft my story and put my story out so that, blind people can read it and, connect to it.
Really good, really good. So who did you work with, by the way, when you released your most recent book? Who were you working
So,
with? Yeah.
my writer, name is, Heidi Tran. She is a local, writer here in Houston. She is visually impaired, and she is actually also a secretary in my local chapter of the NSC. And I was very happy to connect with her and, help me to put my words down so that it would effectively make a difference in the readers, whether it's blind readers or sighted readers. Um, she helped me to really put my story out so that those emotions and feelings can really resonate to whoever is reading my autobiography.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that sounds like it sounds like we should get that person on Erin's opinion too. She sounds like a
We,
great writer as well. We
yeah.
should definitely get connected with that person. That's really cool.
Mhm.
And I've known a lot of people, actually, more people than you realize, Tamer, have come to me
Mhm.
wanting help publishing their books who are blind. So this is a really important thing. You also said too,
Mhm.
you feel that now that you've written this book, you feel that your true, authentic self, your true self as a blind person
Mhm.
is truly understood and is truly expressed in this book. So, I mean, I've asked you many times and you've answered beautifully, but really, what version of you, and I know that you only portray the real you, obviously, but
Mhm.
what version of your blind you could a reader find in the pages? And how do you think it's so different being a blind author? What perspective do we have? Because I want you to dig into your philosophy about
Mhm.
about this. So tell us.
It's really being honest with the reader. Being honest in a way it would uh, flip a switch in those readers' minds and understand that everyone is going through struggle. No one out there is uh, is truly having a fulfilling life. Um, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it
Certainly not.
in
Sure, sure.
I mean it in a way that everyone, goes through hardships, everyone goes through struggles, but, being honest in a way that it would, you know, effectively make a difference in other people's minds. Um, to put that into perspective, you know, it's, it's a way where the reader would say, I'm not alone. I'm not, there's other people out there that are also going through the same situation and I can overcome this. I can, successfully get out of this issue or this, problem. Um, Because obviously in my book, I do talk about my blindness side. I do talk about my invisible disabilities, but, you have to, uh, come to a realization to know that, you know, there's people out there that can help you. There's resources. There's, ways to minimize, challenges. And, my story, I talk about in chapter 10 about, attending LCB and, you know, here to come to know that LCB was the place to be. The reason is because I was lacking skills and it was time for me to understand that I had to work on my skill set. I had to gain confidence. I had to have the trust in my instructors to teach me, the right way of doing things, non-visually. And it's about trust. It's about, you know, um, not even like my instructors, having trust in them, but also like if you go home. So I had to also go through this. When I went home from LCB, I had to build that trust with my family because before, I wasn't, I did not, cook by myself. I did not clean by myself. I did not, travel by myself, but I had to come back and take the initiative to show them exactly how I do things in a non-visual way. And I had to make them, understand that I can be independent even with, blindness. Um, it's all about, confidence. It's all about, um, having purpose. So
Abs- Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was able to, effectively, show my whole family that I can be independent. I don't need their help. I might need their help one day or, at one time, but I can do everything on my own when you know, when I sit down and plan for it or I effectively, um, you know, um, gather information. Um, and I usually do that with Braille.
Of course, absolutely. For the
Mhm.
listener who doesn't know, I know what LCB is. I never went, but I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it. Why don't you go back though and remind people? So what is in one or two sentences? What's LCB? How does that work? And
Mhm.
what do you know about that? LCB is a major thing for a lot of people. So walk through that a
Correct.
little bit. Yeah.
So LCB is a blindness training by the National Federation of the Blind. It's one of three national centers. It's located in Ruston, Louisiana. So basically, if you want to get funded, you need to speak to your rehab counselor. So basically, for me, I had to advocate. I had to work with the Texas NFB office to get funding. So that process took a while. You had to go back and forth with book rehab to tell them exactly what your needs are, why you want to go there. Uh, tell them exactly what you need help with so that you can get the proper funding. So, I was able to do that. And, after a few weeks, I communicated with the center's director, Ms. Pam Allen. And, I told myself before I went that I'm going to put my 110% into this training because working with the NFB, I knew that the NFB would help me tremendously. I knew that in the past, book rehab, did I would say a bad job with, providing me training. But, I had the trust in the NFB. So, once I started training, you know, I, I, I was very fortunate to grow, to help myself understand that, I need skills. I need to have the repetition of learning all those skills. And, by week by week, I grew, exponentially. I was reading Braille faster. I was, planning meals, writing that in Braille, taking it step by step, making no mistakes. I was walking with the cane, using structure discovery, um, structure. And, I learned, effectively how to use a cane and go everywhere I want to go. I don't need to depend on anyone. I learned how to, use a saw in the shop class. But, one thing that I also realized, going through my training that, I was, slower than um, other participants in the program. And, for a while, I did not know why. I did not know why I was slower, why it took me a while to complete projects in the shop class. But it comes to be that it's my memory. It's, I'm slower because of my past brain injury. But again, what I've also learned is that I don't compare myself to anyone. I look at myself and that's it. I don't look out. And that helped me to really realize that, you know, learning is a um, it's a skill that you have for the rest of your life. Um, and it's okay to be slower. It's okay to, do things, on a slower pace. But with me, being slower and being more careful results in a better, result. And that's actually what I've learned. It's just, you know, you can learn on your terms.
Yeah, you're so right. You are so right about all of it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Very interesting. Okay. So how long were you at LCB, by the way?
I was there for 9 months.
9 months. Yeah, that's usually how long it is. About nine
Correct.
months, 9 months to a year, depending on the
Correct.
person. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, really good. Okay. All right. You kind of started at chapter 10. So what can you tell us about chapters 1 to 9? How do we get up to 10? So so basically what I would like you to do is try to walk through the book, talk
Hmm.
about, how you laid out the chapters and what are some of the key points or the keystone moments from each of the chapters that somebody should be aware of when they read the book.
Yeah. So, basically chapter one talks about, uh, how I was born here in the U.S. Then, as a family, we moved back to Palestine. And, in Palestine is where, they have the war. I spoke about how I grew up with, first my grandparents, and my grandma from my mom's side. And it's talking about how, I was always spoiled as a child. Everything that I wanted, I would go to my Aunt Nadia to, to fulfill my wish. And, how, that realization, stayed with me till, you know, till I, came here and, I was always wanting things. Um, I also speak about, having, a connected family that always cared for me. Um, I speak about how, you know, how the struggles, dealing with war in Palestine um, was a perspective where it made me, um, sick, from pollution. Um, I was diagnosed with leukemia, and, I had to come here to the U.S., and I was fortunate to have a U.S. citizen. And it goes into going into to a coma for a month and a half, and how I did not, you know, remember what happened to me during the coma. Um, but I got some information from my family to cover that, and, in my story, or in that chapter, I talk about how, you know what occurred while I was in the coma, and, it was lots of, emotions and feelings, um, you know, situations that were very difficult for my parents. Um, and, it's where, it brought basically too much, um, struggles, um, for my family. But, my family and, my friends and all that, prayed. And, one day I woke up and my father was next to me, and, I mumbled my friend's name. And that from that time I woke up, slowly. So, from there, chapter two would go through, the challenges I faced, um, realizing that I was blind now. It took me a while to understand that, but, there was a time that I woke up and realized that now I don't have sight. I needed to, um, do something. I needed to look up to my siblings. They were going to school and I wanted to go to school too. So, um, I speak about how I started school. I spoke about how I was introduced to Braille and at first I was disgusted, uh, from the idea of learning Braille. Um, I talk in that chapter about how one day in my school back home, we had people with disabilities that came and did a presentation, reading Braille. But I was always, um, sorry to say that, but it made me feel, you know, um, not together. Um, I'm not sure why, but now being on the other end, I regret that. Um, in chapter 3, I talk about, um, growing, throughout school, how my journey was, um, how I basically grew up with my family and, learned how to communicate with them, which was very difficult. It was, a time where, um, you know, I had to, learn things in alternative ways. I had to, get my family's help with schooling, whether it's homework, whether it's projects. And, I talk about how those experiences really were effective, but in the same time did not help me grow as a person. Um, I also talk, um, you know, um, because I went to a school for sighted people, yes, it did help me, but in the same time, um, I did not really know the blindness side of it, how it works, how, um, a blind person can be successful in life. So that really affected my empathy. It affected my way of learning. Um, so all of that was, you know, I talk about you know, in detail. Um, say in chapter 4, you know, um, I talk about how, I go to college and, I would have the same struggles. I'm slower and I do realize that I'm slower and, I was fortunate to have a counselor at, ACC, Alvin Community College that helped me, through my, short-term memory, helped me with, accommodations, for my classes. And I did not really struggle through, community college, but it was where after that I went to the university and that was a, a total game changer. I went into mental health issues. Um, I faced many challenges with accessibility. Um, I, I had to be my own advocate, which I was not ready for. And, that made me, you know, go and seek help from, services that I was not supposed to get help from. I do talk about IRA. I do talk about how I got their help to complete assignments, which I was not supposed to. At the time I was not, using my brain. My skills weren't, up there. And, I can tell you that I, failed, through college, but the way I made it work is, my dad at home or tutoring at college. Um, so all of that was, you can say, cheating, but I did it in a way where, um, it wasn't recognizable. Um, and honestly, I regret that because I should have been, using my brain to do everything, but I was not. In the same time, I had my two jobs. Well, I had a first job with Apple for 2 years. That was at the Apple store. And, I can tell you that I failed because um, I did not have skills. I did not think about things, um, methodically. I did not use, systematic approach. I, um, I always told my employer that things are not working, which they were not working. Accessibility was lacking, at Apple. Um, tools were inaccessible. I even went to a job that, used a kiosk and the kiosk wasn't accessible. I, there, you open tickets to solve issues within the technology, but, those tickets would never get resolved and they put you in the dark for week to week. Um, and, it was an unfortunate situation where, I told my managers that I want to succeed. I am a person with momentum. I'm a person that is ambitious. But, my first job, I resigned. And after 10 months, I was successful at seeking another job with Apple. And that time it was in the Best Buy, but working for Apple. And, after 3 years, I did quit because the same issues arise. Um, and that resulted in mental health issues. So I had to leave my job, knowing that I was lacking. And, at the time I did not know it was mental health, but, after, several weeks, I, went to a doctor and, they realized that I was going through stress. I was going through, anxiety. So, it was, an unfortunate time, um, advocating letting Apple know that, they did a distrust. Um, but I want to reveal something, Aaron. The issue wasn't really my vision. That could have been resolved, after, few tries. But, I believe my issue was my cognitive disability that caused me to, um, suffer as an employee. Um, you know, being slower than your colleague is, an unfortunate thing. Your managers would think that you're lacking and they don't know why because cognitive disability is invisible. They cannot see that. And, it seems as if everything happened at once and, I had to leave because I couldn't do my job. I couldn't function. I couldn't, put my thoughts together. I couldn't, multitask. Um, but I can tell you that, um, the corporate world needs lots of, um, help. It needs lots of, um, ways to improve. Because when you say that you support all types of disabilities, working with all types of accessibility, um, that is not true for the company that I work with. Um, and I don't know if, working with multiple disabilities wasn't what Apple can do, but I can tell you that accessibility does lack in that area. Um, and, yes, I failed at my job. I till this day, I stay determined. I stay, I want to be an advocate for others with multiple disabilities to let them know those, um, companies need to do more. We need more advocacy. We need more, um, people to be, working with us, to make this not happen to others.
Absolutely. Yeah, you are so right. Yeah. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for speaking about it again. I know that we've talked about it before,
Yeah.
but I appreciate you bringing it up again. That's totally fine. Okay.
Sure.
All right, moving. Please continue with, and then the next chapter. Please continue. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next
Sure.
chapter is, finding um, my focus. Um, it was
I think
where
we're on, by the way, I think we're on chapter 5, right? Just to keep track of the numbers. Are we on 5?
oh,
Is this? Yeah.
yeah, chapter 5. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So chapter 5 is about, just give me a minute. Let me, look at my notes. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, so chapter 5 talks about, let's see here. Okay, so chapter 5, almost there. Okay, so in chapter 5, I do talk about, okay, so in chapter 5, I do talk about, you know, facing, okay, I do have a question. Oh, Aaron, can you pause it here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, I said, can you pause it for a second?
Oh, yes, yes. Pause. Yes. Hold on hold on one moment. Sure, I can
Okay,
pause. Of course I can pause.
okay.
One moment, guys. Okay, we're gonna pause. Hold on.
Okay, now we're going to be talking about chapter 5. And the title for this is Living Home, uh, Finding Myself. And that's the title of the chapter. So in this chapter, I primarily talk about, um, you know, how I was able to go through college, how I was able to, how I struggled through college, how I realized that, um, you know, how, that experience, uh, made me go into other challenges. And then, talking about also, the job with Apple, how that experience, made me, realize, there's other things that are going on. Um, you know, I was, basically struggling to understand what was going on. I tried to make myself feel as if I'm normal, but I couldn't, justify, that, um, I just couldn't justify that at all. I knew that there was something else that was going on with me. I knew that, there's something, that I needed to, um, be aware of so that I can, focus on being myself, focus on, how I can understand myself so that I can help myself, um, know how, I can function as a normal, human being. So, through this, chapter, I talk about, what struggles I went through. Um, I talked about, you know, I did provide the feelings and emotions that I faced, which were very, very, um, hard to understand. And, it makes the reader feel as if, they want to support me. They want to, lend a hand so that I can feel connected. Um, but, I struggled. I couldn't, you know, realize, um, what was going on. So this chapter really focuses on how I went through that process, um, what help I got, whether it was my family, whether it was my friend or mentor, Mark, whether it was, members of the NFB. Um, so this chapter really focuses on, you know, understanding my own self and, knowing how I can live my life, successfully.
Okay, got it. And chapter 6, so
Mhm.
that we can get all the way through. I don't know how many chapters there are, but so we can get all the way back to chapter 10. So
So
chapter 6.
chapter
Hmm.
6 really focuses on the overall experience going through, going through college and descending into a mental health crisis. So this chapter really tells you, you know, how I went into college, why I went to college, and that was basically I wanted to mimic my siblings' experience. I wanted to, show my parents that I can be a successful, bright, uh, white collar employee that works for this company that has a status, a person that has, a position that, has value. And, I talk about my college experience, how I, as a person with a visual impairment and a cognitive disability, I was slower. I was, it took me time to understand what I was reading. And, I just struggled as a student. And yes, I completed my coursework at ACP at Albany Community College, but then the big boy college came, and that was a total, darkness. I had to do everything on my own. I had to, again, get guidance from services like IRA, get help with my advanced math classes from my father. But that wasn't the way it's supposed to be done. So again, in this chapter, I talk in detail about, how I made my experience even worse going into uncertainty, going into, mental health issues and not being able to think, with my own mind. That made me go into hard times where I just sat and I doubted myself all the time. Yes, I received my bachelor's in HR management, but at the same time, I felt as if I was betrayed. Because that work wasn't only my own work, it was, getting help from the people around me. And, I talk about how I done all of that, but it was basically the wrong thing to do. And, that degree wasn't what I, was supposed to earn. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, so chapter 7.
Yep.
Maybe you can talk more about, like, maybe if you like, you can put 7, 8 together or 9 to kind of group some of these
Okay.
topics. If you want, you're welcome to.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so chapter 7 talks more about the dream job, the rejection, and how um, that Apple job was the wrong job to go into. Um, as I said, um, um, you know, I lack the skills to do any job. But at the time, I did not know that because I was basically oblivious to what skills I should have had before I went into employment. Um, but the rejection comes from managers doubting my performance. Um, the rejection uh, came um, from letting my managers know that I can do the job, but it takes me more time. Um, I, you know, I did not know at the time that I needed to know how to do X, Y, and Z, and I just told them I can do the job, and it's like giving them a false um, answer. So I would tell them I can do the job, but at the end, the job would not be done correctly. Um, but I can tell you, it's also about my memory because you know if somebody tells me something, I have to write it down. At the time, I was just listening and forgetting what they would say, and that would put me in a tough situation. So, in perspective, I now know the right way of doing things, but at the time, it was where, um, they wanted to avoid me all the time. They never gave me room to expand. They never gave me room to get promoted. And I talk about why I talk about, um, because now I know why, I provided that in the book. It was because I did not have the proper training to know how to perform a job successfully. Um, whether it was taking notes, whether it was recording, whether it was, um, effectively communicating with colleagues. Um, so in that chapter, I talked a lot about um, not doing things the right way and how I could have done it in a way that was, um, it was done professionally.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right, and I totally understand. Yeah, okay. And then chapter 8 and 9. Mm-hmm.
So in chapter 8, it's called Waking Up, Unveiling My Mac. So in this chapter, I really talk about, all the things that I did wrong, all the things um, that I faced, that I made promises, but were not done or were not accomplished. I talk about how, I was always having that positive attitude, having you know, um, a mindset where I want to do everything. I know how to do everything, but it comes to know that I did not. All the people that I worked with, um, all the colleagues that I interacted with, um, it was basically not true. It wasn't where I, you know, I wasn't trustworthy. Um, and part of it, again, is not having the right, skill set, not having the right tools, or the correct tools to do my work. Um, and I needed to, uh, you know, learn that the way I do things is different. Um, and now I know the right way to do it, but at the time I was oblivious. I, I was unaware on, um, that I couldn't do all those things.
Sure,
Um,
sure, sure.
mhm.
Yeah, no, that's all really good. All really, really good. So how many other chapters does your book go up to?
There's two more,
Okay, okay, because just so it just goes to 10 or it goes to 12.
10.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, please go to chapter 9 and then we already know what chapter 10 is about and then we'll actually go on to walking towards the conclusion and how someone can download the book and listen. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So chapter 9 is, okay,
Hmm.
finding faith and focus. So yeah, it's finding faith and focus. So this chapter is about, you know, going through my life, I realized that, um, I did not have a way to connect to God, um, because of my memory issues. Um, it's a short-term memory, so you are not able to, you know, remember, how to connect to God to get that faith. Um, and I can tell you that when I was at LCB, I attended church over there, and with my friends, I was able to slowly regain the notion that um, that my faith was gone, but now I can regain it. It was because I lacked confidence and I had no faith. That's why I wasn't able to, for the longest time ever, be able to connect to, you know, my religion. Um, because you are not being able to believe in something, it's that you're not able to, um, have a conversation with God. Um, it was where, realizing that, um, my, the way I attended church over there was, um, I basically regained the confidence that I can, relate to God, relate to, the faith again. And that made me have trust in myself too. Um, it's just a way where that boost of confidence comes to, um, and, day by day you get more connected to, you know, Jesus. Um,
Absolutely. Sure. Sure. All right. Very good. And then we already know about chapter 10,
correct.
where you talk about that. Okay, Tamer. Well, you did a wonderful job today
Mm,
talking about your book. So, for one, so currently now your book is on Audible, right? Or it's on Amazon. So a
correct.
huge thing for blind people is we have to be able to listen to it though. So where does that stand with people being able to listen to your book and download it that way?
Okay, so, as I mentioned before, my book, is not in audio format yet. It's in the process of getting recorded.
Okay.
I am using a local studio recording studio here in Houston for blind people. It's called Sight into Sound. So those guys are helping me to put my book into audio, and I'm going to be, posting that onto, uh, Amazon and also my website. Um, so basically it's the same way you purchase my other book. But the way it's done is that or the way I chose to do it is get the studio recording to record my book, and then I'll be able to upload it to, Amazon. Um, so, I that would be coming very soon.
Excellent. Very, very good. And for sighted people who want to read it, is the book already on Amazon?
It is, yes. If you go to
Excellent.
Amazon and search for, Blind War by Tamer Zaid,
Please,
it
sure.
would
Well, please be
be,
sure to just send me back the Amazon link to the print copy, certainly,
yes,
and that's where people can go. It's important when you have a book that you direct people
correct.
very, very well, very directly to it, or else
Mm,
people become, with books, people, it's a little harder because there's so many titles and all of that.
right, right.
All right. Well, Tamer, thank you for stopping by today on the podcast. It was an honor to have you for your third of many installments. As always, man,
Of course.
you did a graceful and beautiful job as always, sharing your story and everything like that. But
Hmm.
certainly, before we go, do you have any questions for me? I always like to say, do you have any questions?
I do not.
That is totally fine. Totally fine.
Mhm.
All right, everybody. Well, we want to take this time again. Thank you, Tamara, for sharing your beautiful book. And thank you for writing it because I think, as I've said over the years, I think more people than you realize, more people than I realize, and more people than we realize actually do need to hear your words of wisdom and encouragement. And I think it means a lot to people. And in the future, people will certainly look at these. They'll listen to this episode and they'll say, okay, that's great. But then they'll say, wow, and he actually took the time to write a book. And that's truly a spectacular accomplishment. Not to say that everything else isn't, but the fact that you took the time to write the book, to publish it, to work with these
Correct.
people, that's, whether you have a traumatic brain injury or blind or sighted or regardless, it's a
Mhm.
huge accomplishment to say you published a book and that you're an author. And we want to say thank you.
Of
So
course.
absolutely, man, you are so welcome here,
Mhm.
and we will certainly work very hard to make sure that people not only buy your book in print, buy the print copy, but when it is available on Audible, we need to
Mhm.
talk because I want to listen to it when it's on Audible, and
Correct.
our Aaron's Opinion family will certainly listen when it's on Audible. I think probably more people will listen
Hmm.
than read the print. But absolutely.
Well, it's on Kindle as well. If if anyone likes the Kindle version.
Okay.
Uh, mhm.
Good.
But you can also get the soft cover or the hardcover,
Hmm.
and they are also accessible with low vision.
Yeah. All right. All right. That's really cool, man. That's
Of
super,
course.
super cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. What about a large print version? Did you produce a large print version?
Correct. It is in large print. That's
Oh,
why I
it
mentioned
isn't.
it.
Oh, it isn't. Oh, there is a large print. Usually some books have like a standard print option. I'm not sure what the font size is, but then I've also heard that in some
Mhm.
cases they'll produce a large print version.
Correct.
Yeah, that would be really useful for
Of
low
course.
vision readers. Yeah.
Yes. Um, and also don't forget to follow me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, as Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Hmm.
Um, it's Tamer the Hammer, my uh, handle, and
Hmm.
yeah, that's it. And
Absolutely.
don't forget to visit my website, tamerzaid.com.
And don't forget to click the link in the description for even more information.
Of
And
course.
this video will be added to the Tamer the Hammer playlist. So if you want to hear the past conversations with Tamer over the years, that's a great place to go. Tamer the Hammer playlist on YouTube. And when I send this back to you, it will be part
Mhm.
of the playlist. So when you get the playlist, just share the playlist, and this will be the
Correct.
most up-to-date one. But it's a really cool feature, and we are just so glad to have you.
Mhm.
All
Thank
right,
you so
man.
much.
You're so welcome, man. All the best to all your writing, and keep writing, keep publishing articles, and
Yeah,
keep. Typically, authors do that, though. You write several big books in their
of
lifetime, but
course.
they oftentimes write publications and articles, shorter articles about what's going on around the community, man. So you're doing
Correct.
great. All right, everybody. There you go. Tamer the Hammer. Check it out
Yep.
wherever you get books. Until next time, everybody, have a wonderful day. And of course, help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow.